What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 35. So as always, I'm going to go through how the team is looking, thoughts on transfers, captaincy, 1 week punts, all that good stuff. And before all that, I'll quickly take you through how I'm doing in Game Week 34. Now, I know the Game Week isn't quite over yet. We've still got the Man United and Brighton game tonight. And ideally, I would record this video tomorrow morning, but I'm not going to have enough time. So I thought it's best just to put it out today, and I'll do final thoughts after the press conferences tomorrow. And unless there's any major injury news from tonight's game, my plans aren't really going to change anyway. So hopefully that's okay. Like I said, I'll be doing final thoughts either way tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Trying to hit 340k before the end of the season. So Game Week 34, currently going pretty well. I can't complain because I'm on a green arrow, but it's a very small one. I've gone from 42k to just inside the top 40k. I was doing a little bit better than that because I had Salah and Trent last night who did really well. But when Haaland scored and Grealish got the assist, based on how high Haaland's ownership is and triple captains and stuff like that, it did push me back a bit. But going into the final game with 6 players and a green arrow, that feels pretty good. March is somewhat of a differential. Fernandes is a massive differential. If he can get any kind of attack and return tonight, that will really help me. At my rank, he's about 24% owned. That is super low for someone like Fernandes. So I'm hopeful he'll do something. Obviously, there are scenarios where I come out of this with a red arrow. Everyone does really badly. Maybe there's a red card thrown in there. McAllister gets a brace who I don't own. Stuff like that can happen. But ultimately, I'm pretty hopeful I'm going to come out of a green arrow. So I'm on 104 points. I did take an 8-point hit. So I took out Kane, who scored. I took out Odegaard, who scored twice. Basically the same goal each time against Chelsea. I took out Watkins and Chilwell. I brought in Greenwood to fund it. Then Isak to fund the move for Trent. That's why I had to get rid of Watkins. And then Salah and obviously Trent himself. I haven't gone back and worked out whether the hit paid off. I think it's probably quite close. For example, I could have just not taken the hit for Trent and just played Botman. So saved myself 8 points. Botman scored 5. So that's 13 straight away. So Trent only got 11. He didn't really make that up. But I try not to overthink those things. It was a double game week with 2 home games. I absolutely wanted Trent. And Botman got an assist because it basically hit him on the way through. So I don't know, whether or not it massively paid off, maybe not. But I'm still more than happy that I did it. And the good thing about getting Trent was to fund it, I had to get Isak. And because I brought Isak in and he was lower owned than Trippier, I decided to play him. So I kind of gained 5 points there. So I won't overthink it more than that. I think overall it's a pretty good hit. I didn't expect Odegaard to go and score a brace against Chelsea. Is what it is. Elsewhere, this is kind of what I was saying between the Salah and Haaland captaincy. If Salah was to beat Haaland, was it going to be more than 5 points? Probably not. And in the end, by captaining Haaland over Salah, I've lost 2 points. So for me, that lack of stress from just going for the obvious captain was well worth it. But if you did go for Salah, fair play. Every little point helps. So those extra 2 points, still good. And that's not sarcastic, by the way. I'm glad that Salah finally won out between him and Haaland, even if it was just 2 penalties. But ultimately, that's why we buy Salah. He's nailed on and he's the penalty taker, so you can't really begrudge those things, especially when he went through so much of the season without getting penalties. And also, just a side note, that is now Salah's 6th season in a row. Every season since he came to Liverpool, he's got 200 or more points in FPL. I don't think any other player has done that before. Right now, he is the absolute GOAT of FPL. Haaland might be that if he carries on at Man City and plays every single season for the next 5 or 6. Absolutely fair enough. But right now, it is Salah. And to do it with 18 points in a double game week, happy days. Elsewhere, I can't believe I've actually got to this stage of the video and not talked about it. Look, the Man United and Brighton players, they're doing okay, right? We'll just ignore them. Let's talk about Ederson. How frustrating has he been? And I refuse to acknowledge that he was a bad pick when I brought him in this time, right? Maybe last time it was a bad move, taking him for a hit. I did kind of get... I did kind of time that badly because as soon as I took Kepa out, he got 10, 9, 10, and then he carried on doing pretty poorly afterwards. He did all right, but nothing special. So the timing of that move to Ederson was really bad. But this time, I got him in game week 31 before a free hit, knowing that he had 2 double game weeks, best defence in the league, all that kind of good stuff. I still feel like that was a good move. It's had a very, very bad outcome because he's conceded to a Fulham team that didn't really create a huge amount of chances. Obviously, it was a nice finish from Vinicius. And then last night, Pep rests him. What does he need any rest for? He doesn't make any saves. And to top it all off, Ortega gets the clean sheet, and he also gets 1 bonus point as well. So he actually finished on 7, even though everyone always says Man City keepers, or especially Ederson, only ever finish on 2 or 6. Ortega goes and gets 7. So that was just a real kick in the teeth. And I think that has just elevated him to the ultimate troll, at least for my team for this season. I'll talk about what I'm going to do with him in a minute. Obviously, there now is that worry that how many more games before the end of the season is Ortega going to play? But I just couldn't believe that Kepa got 3, Raya got 2 against Nottingham Forest, and they've still outscored Ederson. To be honest, I think it's just funny for the memes at this point. I don't think, like I said, I don't think it was a bad choice to bring him in this time. This is the 3rd time I've done it this season, but it has been an absolute bad outcome. So somehow Ederson in a double game week where City have kept a clean sheet has come away with 1 point. But we've got to think of the positives. We're on a green arrow. That could get even better tonight, could get worse, but hopefully it gets even better. Let's see how we're looking in game week 35. All right, let's take a look at the defensive options, and I think it's a pretty easy decision to play Estepinian and Trent Alexander-Arnold this week. I don't necessarily expect Liverpool to get a clean sheet against Brentford. That's a pretty difficult team to play against, but it is at home, and he's also playing very well from an attacking perspective, so I don't really want to have to bench him for any of the remaining game weeks while he's in my team. I might have to in 36, which is obviously a double game week, and 37, which is another double game week, but this week it's easy. It's Trent or Shaw, Trent or Botman. It's always going to be Trent. And like I said last week, I think we have got the Trent Alexander-Arnold of old back for FPL. He hasn't blanked for 6 game weeks now, and he's got 6 assists in that time. So he's doing really well. And with Estepinian, I cannot give up a fixture against Everton at home. He got an assist in the first game of double game week 34. Let's see what he does against Man United. But he also came close to scoring twice as well. So I'm hoping he gets similar opportunities against Everton. And they don't really have anyone to play in that left-back role. So there's no reason not to start him either. The more difficult decisions are probably Trippier versus Shaw and Ederson versus Kepa. Now, the way Chelsea are defending right now, not only that, but the way Bournemouth are also attacking with Solanke and co, I don't actually think that playing Kepa is a no-brainer, which a lot of people will, just because of how bad Ederson has been, although he does tend to make more saves, which is obviously something we've talked about quite a lot. I just think Leeds at home is a really good fixture, no matter how much Man City might end up rotating. And yes, I do tend to expect Leeds to score goals, but going to the Etihad is difficult, and I don't expect Ederson to have now lost his place. And I think the good thing with a goalkeeper who's maybe a little bit of a risk compared to like a defender or a midfielder is they don't tend to come on, right? If Ortega starts, he's going to play the whole game unless he gets injured, in which case Ederson just will go out of my team and Kepa will come on instead. So I think my original plan was always to play always to play Ederson, so I'm just going to stick to that. I know a lot of people would disagree, but I'm going to go for the home fixture. Trippier versus Luke Shaw is probably even more difficult because I do fully expect Arsenal to score in that game, but I'm also not completely convinced about Man United's ability to get a clean sheet against West Ham away. I think David Moyes' team will cause problems in that game. And if they're both going to concede, surely the more attacking potential is from Trippier because Luke Shaw is playing as a centre-back right now and Martinez is going to be out for the season, so that looks set to continue. I don't think we're going to see many games where Luke Shaw gets put to left-back, especially when he's also playing so well as a left centre-back. So if I truly believe they're both going to concede, then I think I've got to play the guy at home who has more attacking threat. And also, the way Newcastle are playing right now, like Arsenal's not an easy game by any stretch, right? One of the best 2 teams in the league this season. But could they go and nick a clean sheet? I know they haven't got many recently, but they have been defending pretty well. I think it's very unlikely, but maybe there's an outside shot there. I think the main reason I'm playing Trippier is because he's at home and the attacking potential, but I'm not fully decided on it. I think if Luke Shaw was playing left-back still, I'd probably just risk the away game. That's all it is for me. It's just that away fixture. If it was at home to West Ham, I think I would probably bench Trippier and just hope for the best. But I think the way it's set up, as it stands, I'm on Trippier. But that is the decision in the defence I'm least sure about. Botman is an easy one to bench, and obviously Greenwood is a forward, and he just doesn't get any minutes anyway. So I think my midfield kind of typifies the stage we're at with FPL right now. And because the double game weeks in 34, 36 and 37 involve so many of the same teams, there's not even a real need for me to think about transferring out most of the players in my squad unless they get injured or suspended. And that feels like quite a boring thing to say when we only have 4 game weeks left. But that is the reality of the situation. I think back to last season, and I believe from game weeks 35 to 38, we had 2 double game weeks similar to right now in 36 and 37, but they involve different teams. When I free hit in 37, I was targeting the likes of Villa, Leicester and Everton. I wasn't even thinking about them before that, whereas right now I look at that midfield and I've got Brighton, just had a double game week in 34. Now on paper they got one of the best fixtures you can get at the moment. We saw how many chances Everton conceded against Leicester. Well, Brighton are one of the best attacks in the league, and then they've got a double game week in 36 and another one in 37. So there's just no need to worry about getting rid of them unless they're going to start getting rotated heavily, and I just don't really see that happening. And also, they cost me like 5.5 million or less, so where do I even go when I've only got 0.5 million in the bank? And any downgrade I want to make would involve getting rid of someone like Fernandes, double game week to come, or Trent and Salah, who've got 2 nice fixtures. So there's just, I almost feel like I'm kind of locked into this squad unless I just want to go different for the sake of being different, which I think would just harm my rank. There's just no need to kind of be worrying right now. So I've kind of just got to go with the flow and just see if anything crops up that makes me or forces me into a transfer. And I am going to talk about the 1 week punts with Man City in a minute. Even if you look at Salah and Liverpool, yes, they haven't got any more double game weeks to come, but I'm already tripled up on Brighton and Newcastle, so the game week 36 double is kind of covered. So the only one I'm even slightly thinking about is game week 37, where I might want to get a third Man City player in, but because they're still in the Champions League and stuff like that, I don't want to have to make that decision until as late as possible. So Salah just stays for Brentford at home and Leicester away. Then obviously Man United have got West Ham away, then Wolves at home. Nothing really wrong with those 2 fixtures. And then they've got a double game week in 37 that involves Bournemouth, but also Chelsea, who are not keeping many clean sheets right now. So where do I move with any of these players? Like Fernandes, Rashford, Salah are definitely nailed on. 2 of them are also penalty takers. And then with March and Matoma, I think they're pretty much nailed on as well. I think they might miss 1 game again before the end of the season. I can't really see him being much more than that. And because of the extra fixtures they've got, I might as well hold on to them. So, and even when people have gone different recently, it's kind of gone wrong, right? Jota, bit of a doubt. Benched in both games. De Bruyne completely out of the squad in both games. Mahrez, maybe he's done okay. Alvarez, if you got him for the double, obviously did really well against Fulham. But there's not a huge amount of... I think when I go different, or go for a differential, I don't... You know this now. I don't like doing it for the sake of it. It has to be someone I truly believe will outscore or at least match the player I'm taking out, in the hope that they'll beat them. So take someone like Son, for example. Spurs have got pretty good fixtures from now until the end of the season. Could Son be a differential over Salah? Yes, but do I truly believe he's got a chance of outscoring him? Not really, and I just don't feel like that's a punt that I need to make. I will talk quickly about Man City. Everyone's talking about the Alvarez 1 week punt. What about a midfielder as well? So for example, if, and it's a big if, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, if Haaland is rotated out because of the Champions League, yes, that means Alvarez's minutes become much better, but it also means Mahrez is on penalties. So would he then become one of the best captain opportunities against Leeds at home? Possibly. You've also got the chance of Phil Foden starting, really low own, massive differential if he was to get good minutes. But unless we get that team sheet, I just don't see the point in taking the risk on either of them. And even if they do start, I've got to take out one of Salah, Rashford or Fernandes. And then you know what I'm going to want to do in game week 36? I'm going to want to bring them straight back. So do I think that those Man City midfielders can outscore Salah, Rashford or Fernandes by more than kind of 4 to 8 points? Because I'm using 2 transfers to do it. I'm not so sure. I do think Man City will smash Leeds, but it could be a situation where you punt on Foden, they go 3-0 up, maybe Foden's got 1 assist or whatever it is, and then he gets brought off because the game's won, right? And they want to rest him up for, you know, future games and stuff like that. So that's my main worry. The Man City versus Leeds game looks brilliant on paper, and they do have a double in 37. And I think if I could bring in like a Mahrez, who could then guarantee me starts 35, 36 and both games in 37, well, maybe then I would do it. But there is no guarantee of that whatsoever. So I know generally when I make my moves, I'm not the most adventurous FPL manager or anything like that. But right now it feels even harder to be thinking outside of the box because the double game weeks have kind of got me absolutely locked in. So in terms of transfers, yes, going for one of those Man City midfielders would be nice, and maybe there'll be an injury that turns my hand. But right now, that is the 5 I'm going for, and that is kind of the stage we're at with FPL right now. That is kind of why I want 2 free transfers going into 38, so I can at least think about doing something different before I end up just making a really boring move anyway. And then up front, it's Haaland and Isak. And guess what? Both of those players have a double game week remaining before the end of the season. And therefore, I don't necessarily need to put too much thought into transferring them out. I could just hold this team for game week 35 and roll the transfer into game week 36. And that's my current plan, is to go into game week 36 with 2 free transfers, just use 1. I then have 2 free transfers for game week 37. I can worry about getting my 3rd Man City player in then. Hopefully, I can do that in one move, which would allow me 2 free transfers in game week 38. So that's the rough plan. To be fair, there is some stuff to talk about with Haaland and Isak. So let's start with Haaland. Some of us are expecting rotation against Leeds at home because of the Champions League, and part of that rotation could be Haaland being benched, right? Now, what do I think the chances of that are? I guess they're higher than they have been at any other stage this season because the Real Madrid semi-final is huge, but we haven't seen Haaland be rotated once in the league yet when he's been fit. So I don't think it's a case that he's going to miss Leeds and Everton. I think there's a chance he misses one of them. It doesn't necessarily mean it's Leeds. So unless we get confirmed news from a reliable source before the deadline, I'm intending to keep Haaland. If we find out he's benched, I would still probably keep him, but I would switch the captaincy, right? I know people will say things like 20, 30 minutes against Leeds could be a hat-trick for Haaland. Absolutely. But let's be real. If he's benched, I'm not captaining him. And I would change the armband to Salah instead, right? So that's probably what I would do. Quite boring, but that's the rough plan right now if Haaland doesn't start. If he doesn't start, or De Bruyne is injured, there's every likelihood that Alvarez will start again. So the thinking then would be, well, could I remove one of my forwards to get Alvarez in, then captain him? Now, that plan does draw me in a little bit, because even though lots of other people on Twitter and YouTube, etc., and podcasts will be talking about that, he'll still end up being quite a low-owned captain against Leeds at home. So there is a lot I like about it, but whichever forward I take out of Haaland or Isak to get Alvarez in would then likely have to come back in game week 36 anyway. I can't afford to do Greenwood to Alvarez. I don't have enough money in the bank. Now, there's not an issue with that. But if I bring Alvarez in, then take him out again in 36, then get my 3rd Man City player in 37, it means I go into game week 38 with 1 free transfer. Now, that's not the end of the world. It might be that I don't need to make many moves in 38. The team sheets that come out are kind of as we would expect them to be anyway. But I guess that's the thing I'm weighing up. A 1-week punt on Alvarez. Unless De Bruyne is out for the season, then that changes things a little bit because he would then be someone that's pretty much nailed on. But I don't think that's going to be the case. So do I go for the 1-week punt on Alvarez, bearing in mind that Salah is a perfectly good captain this week instead of having to go for a Man City player against Leeds? I know what people are thinking, right? The upside, etc. And if it pays off, it looks great. But Salah against Brentford is a perfectly good captain, right? So I'm not massively worried about that. So the 1-week punt for Alvarez, or would I prefer to try and get 2 free transfers for 38? Right now, I'm leaning more towards having that extra flexibility in the week where there are no more double game weeks to worry about, and I can finally stop having all these players that are locked in. Now, don't get me wrong, Salah's playing Southampton last day of the season. Rashford and Fernandes are playing Fulham at home. Haaland's going to go nowhere anyway, so there's not too many spots I can play around with. But Newcastle, Chelsea away, could Isak's minutes get shared with Wilson, etc.? Possibly. That is a player that I would look to move on, despite how bad Chelsea are maybe defending at the moment. So even though the Alvarez 1-week punt looks good, I think I prefer trying to roll a transfer if I could. And it's the same situation with Isak. If I do Isak to Alvarez, well, that takes out one of my Newcastle players who doubles in 36, and I'm probably going to want to have one of their attackers. Now, the conversation to have around Isak is whether he or Wilson are the better option. And if you told me that Isak and Wilson are going to have exactly the same amount of minutes from now until the end of the season, I would choose Wilson because I think he's ahead in penalty order and his expected goals, expected assists are just higher. So that is who I would go for. But I don't think Wilson's minutes are going to be higher. I think it's still Isak. From everything we've seen so far, Wilson has only started during quick turnarounds. So yes, he might well get the Leeds game in game week 36, and Isak might get more of his minutes against Brighton, but I don't think that warrants using transfers to switch them around. So unless against Arsenal, things change and Wilson starts and Isak doesn't, and then I am genuinely kind of a little bit worried about the minutes going into 36, there's no real need to swap Isak out. So would I rather have Alvarez than Isak for game week 35? Yes, but is it worth 2 free transfers? Bearing in mind, Arsenal haven't kept a clean sheet for like 6 or 7 games, and Newcastle are attacking extremely well right now. I'm just not sure it is. So I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit of a hypocrite because I'm saying like my midfield, my defence is basically locked in. There's no real moves I can make. And actually there is one right there for me. Maybe getting Alvarez as a 1 week punt for a forward. But unless we get that team sheet, there's not even a guarantee that he's going to start anyway. And also he wasn't great last night against West Ham. And maybe that will play on Pep's mind. He was really good against Fulham. So I guess we shouldn't take a 1 game sample into our thinking for the next week. But he wasn't fantastic, right? He still came off early-ish. I think it was around the 75th minute. So, yeah, I fully get it. But if Haaland starts, he's captain. And if Haaland does start, the appeal of Alvarez... I know I'm ranting a bit now. The appeal... Or not ranting, I'm rambling. The appeal for Alvarez goes down a little bit for me if Haaland starts, because he's then the obvious captain. So I think I'm likely to roll. And all I'll do if Haaland doesn't start is switch the armband to Salah. And I'll probably just still keep Haaland on the pitch. And I've got Luke Shaw to come on if he doesn't play. So that's my current thinking. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like. Hit that subscribe button. Let me know down below, what am I missing? Which players can I get rid of that I don't feel like I can? I'm not sure there's many in that squad whatsoever. Like literally none, apart from Salah and Trent. They are the 2 players, or maybe one of the goalkeepers that I feel like I can transfer out, and I just don't see any point in doing it this week. So game week 35, I thought it would be quite a boring week. It's setting up to be that way, but who knows? Maybe there'll be injuries in the Brighton Man United game. That will spice a few things up for FPL. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Help me hit 340,000 subscribers, and I'll catch you tomorrow.